Here, let's call to order the Contra Costa Transportation Authority meeting for October 19th. Looks like, let's see, do you need to even do a roll call? Looks like we're all here. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. Who isn't here? Don's here. Who are we missing?
David Durant.
David Durant. Okay, you got the roll call?
He will not be here, so we'll wait and see whether his alternate show up.
All right. No problem. We got 10. Would you please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Next item on the agenda is approval of the minutes. Any additions, corrections, motions? Approval. Approval, Romick. Second, Pierce. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Any abstain? Noes? None? 10-0. Next item on the agenda is consent calendar items, generally routine in nature, act upon with a single motion. Or do we have any cards, Terrian? Nobody wants to pull one there.
Move approval.
Move approval, Tatson. Second, Romick. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, no abstentions. We're on to the real meat of the order. I believe it's item 4, the APCs. They're the first item. Let's see who we got here. I know you're here somewhere. Yes, new item, State Route 4, Balfour Road Interchange, Executive Agreement number 427. Ivan Ramirez, you're up.
Good evening, Chair and board members. My name is Ivan Ramirez, and I'm the construction manager for the authority. This is an action item. It's related to the State Route 4 Balfour Road Interchange. And we're going to ask you to award the contract to the lowest responsible bidder submitting a responsive bid. The board gave authority to staff to award, administer, and advertise this construction contract, and we advertised it July 29th. Originally, we gave the bidders 4 weeks to submit a bid, but after getting some input from industry and internal discussions, we extended the bid time another 4 weeks. And that strategy appears to have paid off because we submitted the lowest bidder submitted a very favorable bid. The lowest bidder is a joint venture of Bessemer and Wall and Bay Cities Paving and Grading. These firms are actually local. Bessemer and Wall has an office headquarters in Walnut Creek, and Bay Cities Paving and Grading has an office in Concord. In addition to that, these contractors have experience working with us. Bessemer and Wall is actually working on the San Pablo Dam Road project on I-80, and Bay Cities has had many contracts with us as a subcontractor to prime contractors and as joint venture partners out on Highway 4. So the joint venture submitted a bid of $36,925,926, which is just shy of $4 million under the engineer's estimate. And before the board approves this motion, I would like to alert you to a letter that we received from a group called the Northern California Electrical Construction Industry. We call this a watch group, but they call themselves a labor management cooperative trust. Before they submitted this letter, they called me and they told me that this was not a protest. It was just sending an advisement letter, and that's what they call this letter. And even if it were a protest, it would be late, and we could reject it based on those grounds. But what they're asking the board to do is to find a subcontractor to Bessemer and Wall and Bay Cities Paving and Grading joint venture to find them non-responsible. And the reason why they want the board to do that is because the Department of Industrial Relations has issued a ruling against them where they did not pay some prevailing wages, and they've been, due to the back wages that they need to pay back and also this penalties incurred by them, they have to pay about $95,000 to the Department of Industrial Relations. Having said that, and by the way, the letter has a copy of the citation that the Department of Industrial Relations gave to the Betancourt, which is the sub that I'm talking about. I of course, immediately talked to our legal counsel, Best and Krieger, about this letter, and they basically said the following. They said that the writer of this letter has no standing because they're not a bidder, so they have no standing for which to submit a protest, which is not a protest, as you know, it's just an advisement letter. Another thing to note is that the contractor is not necessarily non-responsible because he's been cited. So a good example would be car OSHA citations that happen all the time, and contractors pay penalties, but they're not found to be irresponsible bidders for that reason. So council actually recommended that we don't even respond to this letter. So I just wanted to highlight that letter before the board so that you have all the information available before you vote. Staff recommends that you award the contract to Bronson Memorial Wall Bay Cities Paving and Grading Joint Venture.
Okay. Questions of staff?
No. No.
You just wanted to turn on your light to see if it worked?
No, because I'm going to make the motion.
Move away.
She has a light on.
Oh, I'm sorry, I didn't see you.
I was
I
going to
looked
make a
there
motion.
first.
You make the motion, I'll second it.
Oh, okay.
I have some real power here. Wait a minute. Motion Taylor, second Pierce.
Cool.
Discussion.
No.
I just want to, go ahead.
I want to make a comment here. This is a historic night for the city of Brentwood. This is a huge deal for us. And so I just want to make that. I want to thank everybody for the work. I was actually here, and we opened the bids. So with that, I make a motion.
We got the motion Taylor and a second from Pierce. I just wanted to point out, because we have the letter, in case anybody on APC brought this up, that this bid is almost 10% below even the engineer's estimate, but that's fine. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, so much for APC. Let's move on to PC. Item,
Our
where'd you go?
contractors just came in the back door while we were making that motion. So thank you very much, and we look forward to a great project.
Okay, item 4B.3, review of the Metropolitan Transportation Commission proposed Plan Bay Area 2040 preferred scenario. Matt Kelly, where you? There you are. You're up.
Right here. Thank you, Chair and authority members. Good evening. In late August, MTC and ABAG released their draft preferred scenario of the 2017 Regional Transportation Plan, also known as Plan Bay Area 2040. The draft preferred scenario builds off of the 2013 RTP and is guided by Senate Bill 375 policies to develop a sustainable community strategy in order to reduce per capita greenhouse gas emissions and to house the region's population at all income levels. As with the last RTP, the draft preferred scenario focuses growth around transit, primarily in priority development areas. MTC and ABAG's memo contained the draft land use allocations of households and employment at the city level, and they requested that stakeholders review and comment on the memo. Staff has reviewed the draft preferred scenario and drafted the comment letter that's in your packet. You'll see there's track changes in the letter, and those are based on the discussion at the October 5th Planning Committee meeting. We focused on the following points. The plan increases the number of new households in the Bay Area in 2040 by 820,000 as compared to the 700,000 projected in the 2013 RTP, so an increase of 120,000 households over the last round. For Contra Costa, the number of households are forecast to grow by 115,000 by 2040, and that's compared with the 89,000 in the 2013 RTP. Jobs are forecast to grow by 112,000 in the 2017 draft preferred scenario, and that's lower than the 122,000 that were in the 2013 RTP. West County and East County are seeing significantly more households than in the 2013 RTP, and West and Central County are seeing significantly more jobs than in the last RTP. We are seeing that the overall trend of placing more homes in areas like eastern Contra Costa while placing the majority of the new jobs in the big three cities further exacerbates our outcommute of workers and could lead to worsening congestion and transit crowding in the county. Currently, Contra Costa residents have the longest commutes in the Bay Area. That's according to MTC's vital signs. So further compounding this fact is that Solano County, our neighbor to the north, is under this plan becoming an even bigger bedroom community. And their workers must cross the Carquinez and Benicio Martinez bridges, travel through Contra Costa to reach quality jobs. Contra Costa has made a significant investment of local dollars in our transportation system over the last 20 years, and we're worried that this trend will erode the progress made over the last few decades, placing significant burden on our system, including I-80, I-680, SR4, and the BART system. So in this letter, we thank the regional agencies for recognizing Contra Costa's urban limit line policies and removing the assumption that these lines are somewhat fluid, as was proposed in the no project alternative. In addition, we strongly encourage MTC to include priority production areas program in the RTP, as we believe the county's Northern Waterfront Initiative would be a prime candidate for funding under this program and could have a positive impact on the efforts to economically redevelop this important waterfront zone, 55 miles of the northern part of our county. This would put jobs closer to residents and would provide living wage jobs. And in Contra Costa, we feel that living wage job production is just as important as housing production. We also found some inconsistencies and anomalies in the land use at the city level, but we are working with MTC and ABAG staff offline to rectify those issues. On the transportation improvement side of the draft preferred scenario, we were able to get all of the Contra Costa priority projects included in the plan, and that includes the transit improvements on I-680 and I-80, the SR4 operational improvements, the SR4 680 interchange improvements, including all phases, EBART Phase 2, the airport connector, or now known as the Byron Vasco connector, a complete streets program, the Brentwood intermodal station, the Oakley Park and Ride, and program funding for connected vehicle technology. So the final preferred scenario is scheduled to be adopted by the regional agencies in November, and staff is recommending transmittal of the comment letter to MTC and ABAG. And tonight we do have Doug Johnson from MTC and Johnny Jaramillo from ABAG, and one of us can probably answer any of your questions tonight.
Before I give the floor to Karen, is it your intent to tag team together on this or just separate? What are we looking at, 3 and 4? I saw Martin jump up there. We're staying with 3? Okay, go ahead. Member Mitchell.
Thank you. For those of us who serve on the planning committee here, I want to thank Matt and staff for the additional editing on the letter. That day I had just come from a regional planning committee meeting at ABAG, and there will be a concerted effort, and I'm not disputing that there needs to be more housing, but there was we actually were voted down. There's an effort to make housing the highest priority of the 3 priority areas, and our position is they all should be equal. They will be judged on their own merits, and especially here in Contra Costa County, and I was actually having conversations afterwards. They all agree Contra Costa County doesn't have the housing problem that other areas do. And so we asked Matt and staff to rework this letter, and I've read it, and he has included that in there. I see a bit of a battle ahead of us, but we'll be at ABAG tomorrow night, and under Julie's excellent leadership, I'm sure we will get it back to a neutral position that all 3 types of priority areas are viewed equally. So I just wanted to thank staff. It's a great letter. It really highlights how important it is, not only that we no longer want to be the bedroom community, we want to have excellent, high-quality jobs here in Contra Costa County to reduce the effects of what we're all working for. So I think it's a great letter, and I'll put the motion on the floor, and I know there may be some other discussion.
Okay, I have a motion and a motion, Mitchoff, second, Glover. I had a couple of comments, and I don't know why we don't do it. One, when I'm reading this, I think I was going to ask first, this is the stronger language, right? We're not, okay. The second thing, it talks about stress and strain on 80, 680, 424. I mean, we should go out even further. What we do puts strain on 580 also, and I sometimes think we should jump in there. And same thing with the counties when we talk about the draft preferred scenario and Sonoma. We just mentioned Solano, but that's my own personal opinion. I like the letter. I thought it was a great letter. I want to know how come I'm not signing this letter. Randy gets this letter, and I get some dinky little thing in the back, but that's okay. No, he might reject me. I know why. Okay. We have a motion, Mitchoff, a second. Did you want to speak, or Glover? You did want to speak. All right, let me get. It doesn't even turn on a light. I can just feel it.
I just had a comment. One of the things I needed to point out for those who are looking at the dramatic differences between the projections in this plan versus the 2013 plan, and just make sure that everyone understands, this one is more of an economic touchstone than the traditional RENA type projection. This is more of a market analysis of where things are likely to happen economically, rather than the aspirational check that we usually do. We're trying to blend the two somewhat, and much of this is dependent on the accuracy of the zoning maps in each of our jurisdictions. So if you see something that's grossly out of line with what you think is even feasible, you might ask to check with MTC and ABAG staff on the actual maps and see what's there. But this really is what UrbanSim does, is apply market factors to the projected populations using all of our data in our general plans and our zoning to see whether the market really is going to build what we think we'd like to have built, or if there is something we need to do to adjust our ideas and maybe our planning processes or some of our requirements and those kinds of things to make the growth go where we want it to go versus where it may naturally go. Those are going to be some of the value decisions that we will be all making as we go forward. And Karen made the point that there are lots of priorities in this, and whether it will stand to rank one priority higher than the others is a discussion that is coming up, I'm sure, and was likely to be a lively discussion when it comes to the joint board level. ABAG and MTC will be adopting this in November with a joint meeting of both boards. Going to be very interesting to see how we fit all that in our boardroom. But it should be, it will be a lively meeting. But I just wanted to make sure that that's really clear, because it's a complete different way of doing it than we've done the traditional projections in the past. And when we go to, and it does not set a stage or set a precedent for what we're going to do when we do RENA. I want to make really clear that how we will do RENA for the next round, when we have to do that, has yet to be figured out. What the role of UrbanSim will be and what the other aspects will be, we're not really clear yet. The other thing that we discussed at MTC at our meeting last week is that many of the policies that are driving in this whole plan, or the ones that are being missed in this plan, are ones we're going to have to start to tackle really soon. And we're projecting that as soon as we get this into the EIR phase, early next year, we'll start tackling some of those policy issues for the next round, so that we can start very early in the next round with some of these discussions about how we're going to make the policy decisions that are so critical to making our plans a success. And so there's going to be a lot of time for people to weigh in, but I wanted people to understand what the premise for this is first, and understand the context for this projection.
Okay, we have still the same motion on the floor. Transmit the letter to MTC. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed? Seeing none, no abstentions. We're on to 4B4. Further discussion of One Bay Area Grant 2, project screening and selection criteria. Martin Engelman, staff report.
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, and good evening, board members. Martin Engelman, Deputy Executive Director for Planning, and Brad Beck is to my left. He's our Senior Transportation Planner, and he knows a lot about the background of this item. We have released the One Bay Area Grant call for projects. It's out there. The guidelines and the application are up on the authority website. We're starting to work on our engagement of the public, including meeting with our CAC committee this coming Wednesday. We're having a workshop tomorrow with our TCC members, and after TCC there'll be a special workshop with our local jurisdictional staff to make sure they understand how to work the application process. So it's underway, but there are two items that came up in the course of releasing this this call, and one of them had to do with the anti-displacement policy, and another had to do with requiring that jurisdictions adopt a surplus land resolution in order to get their OBAG funds. So regarding the housing anti-displacement policy, our original proposal was that we would use the factors that are outlined at UC Berkeley's website, Urban Displacement, and ask jurisdictions how many of those policies have they adopted, and it would be kind of the more they adopted, the more points they would get. And just to mention, there is a scoring system for competitive OBAG projects, and there's a total of 100 points that a jurisdiction can get. 4 of those will be based upon the anti-displacement policy. We did hear from a couple of board members concern about these policies and the fact that not all of these policies are effective, and I think Commissioner Button particularly was concerned about some of the policies regarding fixing rents, and that was not always effective in terms of preventing displacement. So we're taking an alternative approach, and our recommendation is we will, instead of asking the jurisdictions to check off the number of policies that they have, we will ask them to write an essay question indicating what they are doing to prevent displacement in their local jurisdiction. And then it'll be a judgment call, but based upon the strength of that essay question, then the application would be scored accordingly. And so a very strong essay would get 4 points, and a very weak one would get 0 points. And the scoring will initially be performed by a subcommittee of the Technical Coordinating Committee, and then it'll go up to TCC and continue on there through the Planning Committee and the Authority, and that's all going to happen in 2017. So that's the story on anti-displacement. Regarding the Surplus Land Act, there's a requirement in MTC's resolution indicating that every jurisdiction has to adopt a urban land policy, a surplus land policy, a surplus land policy resolution stating that they will abide by state law. And I think Commissioner Arnrich was concerned about this, and some other board members were concerned, why are we requiring every jurisdiction in the Bay Area to adopt a resolution that says that they agree to obey state law when they are already going to be doing that? So what we're proposing is to actually ask MTC to amend their resolution, and we have in your packet a draft letter asking that instead of having Resolution 4202 require a resolution, that we add this to the OBAG checklist. And just like the growth management program, we have, actually it was our idea, to let MTC have a checklist that they would hand to the CMAs and the local jurisdictions. And it asked a lot of questions about all the requirements under Resolution 4202, complete streets included. One of the questions would be, does the jurisdiction understand and comply with the state's Surplus Land Act, AB 2135, as amended? And this question applies only to general law cities and counties, and it doesn't apply to charter cities at this point in time. So, question for you tonight is, are you okay with the proposal for the anti-displacement policy new scoring idea? And are you interested in sending this letter off to MTC asking that they amend Resolution 4202?
Yeah, I saw that letter. Okay. Member Mitchoff.
Well, I think it's a great idea relative to the anti-displacement. What I'd ask is, we have 3 members of MTC here, because we did have this robust discussion last time about why do we have to do a resolution when we already have to comply with state law. Can you shed any light on this? I guess, and I'm sorry, Mr. Hudson, you're the chair, but that would
Nah,
be...
keep going.
Thank you. Ms. Worth.
Oh, through the chair, Mr. Chair, I'd be happy to offer some reflections on the conversation. This was, the law requires that cities provide, and they're working with BART, because BART and Caltrans have a lot of land too. But the idea that finding land for affordable housing is such a huge challenge, and that there is a fair amount of land under the control of cities and counties and other public agencies. And the feeling with, by the affordable housing advocates, is that it's very important to really articulate a very formal, strong commitment to the concept of providing the highest and best use, providing making that land available to affordable housing projects. So that's really it. And of course it is state law, and I think that the challenge is the intent was to really affirm cities' commitment to following state law in that area. It's kind of like the complete streets, or the fact that we now are required to have a state-approved housing element. That again, before that requirement was in place, there were a number of cities in the Bay Area that didn't have state-approved housing elements, and now we're at 100% compliance. So that was the thought process. I think that it was just a reflection of how do we continue to address the issue of available land for projects. And obviously there would be the normal bidding process that goes through, and the vetting process that cities would engage in.
And I appreciate that.
Can I ask you a question, because I'm reading something different here in the letter I sent. It has to do with the disposition.
Right.
I mean, if you don't do,
Exactly.
if somebody wants to build on my golf course,
yeah,
and I
no.
don't, you okay?
This
and
has
that's-
to do the fact that if a city wants to surplus a parcel, it's kind of like, we're all familiar with the Naylor Act, for example. If a school district surpluses a parcel, the public agencies have, right of first refusal. So it's really, that's all it refers to, is if a city is actually, or a county is actually disposing of property.
Well, Supervisor Glover and I are going through this in the city of Pleasant Hill right now. And the problem I see, I'd rather see some other vehicle, no pun intended, mechanism for urging cities and counties to acknowledge the use of their surplus lands. And the reason I'm saying that is this. We're in a dispute right now over the value of surplus lands and whether, and you use the term highest and best use. Nowhere in the Surplus Land Act does it require a public agency to sell to a bidder at a lower price. And my concern is that it raises the expectation that affordable housing advocates may think, oh, they'll get it for a lower price. And jurisdictions are going to end up in lawsuits all over the place. We're doing this right now, and it's over parkland, for Pete's sake. Not that we don't like parkland, but the problem is the valuation. So my comment is that there's got to be a better way to encourage cities and counties and jurisdictions to advocate for that. And maybe there isn't, and maybe it has to land on the affordable housing advocates. I don't believe that by putting, I guess my point is, by putting a requirement in there is not going to get us where we want to go. And therefore, if we want to have a statement that that it is the intent of those seeking OBAG, the grantor of OBAG 2 grants, that property be utilized, but a resolution, to be honest, does nothing, because you can pass all the resolutions in the world that we're going to do this, and you're not going to get what you're trying to get at. And I don't disagree that that's not a noble goal, but it ain't going to do it.
This, and to clarify, this would not change state law at all. It would not impose, and I understand.
No, I know it wouldn't change it.
What you're saying.
But to put it in there doesn't get us where we want to go.
Yeah. Well,
Can I interject something before I ask Chris? Do you also have some people you wanted to speak from MTC here tonight? Did I miss that, Martin?
I think Amy did great.
Okay.
We have some staff people here as previously introduced, and they're welcome to answer any questions, but I think we have commissioners as well. So.
Okay, just want to let people know there are staff members here if you wanted to pursue it further. Member Peoples.
Yeah, Supervisor, I can tell you partly where this came from. When they reconfigured 12th Street at the bottom of Lake Merritt in Oakland, it freed up a very large and very valuable piece of land, which they proceeded to try to give to somebody's friend to develop. Public advocates wrote them and reminded them of the Surplus Land Act. They ignored it. Public advocates had to sue them to make the city of Oakland to make them aware that they really did have to pay attention to the Surplus Land Act. And as soon as the suit got filed, it got settled and all that stuff. But clearly there are cities out there who willfully choose to ignore this act. And I think the affordable housing advocates felt burned by that and felt that they needed to have a mechanism to make sure that all the cities admitted that this act existed and they had to comply with it. Now, whether this is the best way to do it or not, I don't know.
Well, that's it. I don't disagree that Surplus Land Act should be adhered to. It's illegal. It's a law. I'm just saying by resolution doesn't get you there. Maybe it's if you're applying for this grant and you have surplus land, you will adhere to the laws and move forward with that. A checklist kind of thing that we put in the past. I mean, you're right. There's no harm, no foul by requiring a resolution. I just think it doesn't get us. It doesn't seem to get us somewhere.
No problem. Member Ernrich is going to solve it all right now. And have me write this, sign this letter too, right?
Yeah,
Okay.
I think the letter's spot on. I think the question to Amy and or MTC is, if you go back when MTC started working on this, some of the legislation wasn't finished. But the legislation's in place, and all we're asking, real simple, is legislation's there. Doing any change to that, whether it be an ordinance or a resolution, you're risking changing something, because in fact that's how local government changes or adds their own direction. I don't think it shouldn't be MTC's intent to change state law in any way. And if it's not, then I would hope, and maybe we can hear this, do you, as a representative MTC, agree with this and think this is reasonable? Will you advocate to the board to get this changed? Because
We've got two others.
Yeah, two others. But because we need to know that, because otherwise we're wasting our time. And that's really the point, that I think in good governance,
We should not be trying to rewrite things and then slightly slip in. Let's be upfront. If it's just state law we're going to comply with, let's do it. And I think that was the original intent. The letter's real clean. So the question to all of you at MTC, do you support this? Or do you have a different suggestion? I don't want to qualify it. It's either yes or no. And if it's no, then tell us why.
Okay. Member Pierce, you're up first. And you're not,
I don't have a problem with making it a checklist question. Is the jurisdiction aware of the state law? I mean, frankly, having to adopt an extra resolution to say, yes, we know what the state law says, does seem like kind of an exercise in I don't know. I guess it makes it makes maybe the rest of the council members who aren't aware more aware, but realistically, if staff knows it's there, they know it's there. And a checklist, are you aware that this applies if you want to go after this money? Yes, we're aware. I'm fine with that.
Member Glover.
I'm also fine with it. I think that the intent was to be able to sing Kumbaya at the end of the day, that everyone's on board and looking in sync. But if it imposes a problem, which I think it will with other cities also, with other counties also, then I'm fine with it being a part of the checklist. No problem.
Okay, what I'm hearing so far, and you can fill up, we got a letter that's good. What else are we looking for?
Yeah, so what I wanted to say is I appreciate that, and I know that was kind of putting everybody on the spot, but we're friends, so let's get to it. I also think that the higher level, and something for MTC, as you as commissioners realize, that we went through some very difficult times, and there are a lot of our other elected folks and a lot of our constituencies who do not like MTC, ABAG, and those roles that they play. So where we can eliminate this, by the way, you better do this because I want you to reaffirm something, the more we can avoid that, the better government we have, governance, and I think the better relationships that we create. So where we find that we're just trying to stick with state law, then let's just say that, and I think that's a reminder to all of us, and it will help us and our own constituents. And I'd support making this change and move the item.
Okay.
Second.
We have a motion, Arnridge, second, Pierce, to send this letter on. And the discussion, any other points on there you want to make?
Well, just to answer Chris's concern, it's the same thing. If they passed a resolution and they didn't abide by it, they'd get up there and waive that. The same way is they can get up there and waive the state law. So I agree with both Newell and Julie have said that we don't need to alienate people that we don't need to alienate in our communities. I'm sorry, I'm repeating myself.
No, you got it. All those in favor say aye. Aye. Opposed, abstained, seeing none. I have to apologize. The memory is gone. Did I do public comment tonight?
No.
Public comment is now open. Anyone in the audience who wishes to address this august body on any item not on the agenda, please come forward. Do we have any cards?
We have no cards.
Public comment is...
Jerry probably wants to.
Okay, Jerry, you're up. See, that's what we were just waiting till you got here. We delayed, deferred, whatever it is.
Thank you. Very long time I came back here, and yes, I was at MTC, and I was there at that day, and they're talking about 680 freeway, want to make it a little bigger, wiser in Concord and everywhere, from there to the Ramon, and I'm very, very, very pleased what that MTC tried to do, and they tried to do is 640, but get more houses up and running, and near the bus station or around the bus station, and that'd be good. And right at this point, right now, I'm an author, but MTC or anybody else do not know. I'm an author, no parking anywhere, and the garage is parking is full. but I don't know any other places would be. But I don't know what any other station is for or not for. There is for that people are parking in the street somewhere or someplace. But yes, I will tell that to the board. I will be there tomorrow.
Good.
But bottom line, I'm very happy. I saw that most of you guys here once before. Some of you new to me, and I let you know my name is Jerry Grace. I live in this West DC County, and I'm in Alameda County People Post, and the Bay People Post, and People Post of California. One last thing to say, if you know anybody, if you have any child or anything you want to do, please come. People Post of California in Sacramento, right down the California, in Sacramento, Red Lion Hotel, West Lake Hotel, the June 23, 24, 25. They'll be right in the People Post California and together. And very soon they'll move it and everything will be on the computer sometime next year. They'll be again June 23, 24, 25. Everything will be up and running on the computer. Thank you.
Thank you, Jerry. Okay, seeing no other speakers, public comment is closed. Next item on the agenda, you have a letter about Tassajara Parks, item 5. Any comments? Seeing no lights, we'll move on to, are there any comments about the Associated Committee report, 6.1, 6.2, 6.3, 6.4? Seeing none, let's go to the Commissioner's staff report. Chair's comments and report, very simply. I don't know how this affects us, and I'm asking the same question every board I'm on, but Vision Zero seems to be some kind of movement that is catching a lot of attention to eliminate deaths from accidents in cities. If you can, take a moment, staff, and see how it affects us. I asked the Air District to do the same thing today. The larger cities have adopted it. The thing that caught my attention, MTC's endorsed it. I got a letter from Debbie Long, if that's the correct name, and my opinion is, how is this going to affect us other than one Bay Area? And I don't know how we're going to get that 1 point out of 10 that we're trying to accomplish without it, but that's my question, that's my report. On to item 7.2, Commissioner report. Oh, he's warming up, I can see his light. We have no Commissioner, Mr. Taylor.
I have a question
Okay,
on Commissioners.
Oh.
May I make a statement or ask a
yes,
question?
yes,
Commissioner's time, right?
yes.
What is that?
They lifted it up so it wasn't sitting on the floor.
It's always been there.
They put it on a roll-around stand.
So, so,
It's this new fandangle thing.
Yeah.
no.
That's
it's
our
called a
clerk.
TV. I know you guys are laughing at me, but is this new? Is this, so what's new, a brand new screen?
No, the stand.
Just a stand? So we can roll it around to wherever?
Commissioner Taylor, Brandon
When did
Carl,
I lose
CFO.
control?
This is part of the audiovisual upgrade project that the board approved in September. There's a number of enhancements. This is just one of them, one example. The screen will be rolled out a little closer to, the commissioners. The prior screen, although it worked, the downside to it was if you're sitting in the audience looking at the dais, you couldn't tell if the commissioners were looking at the screen. So it may have given the impression that you weren't following the presentation. But now we have this screen, which is more visible to the commissioners, as well as the screen that will drop down behind you. There's a number of other improvements going on in the office across the way to digitally upgrade our audiovisual work.
Okay, I just wanted to ask what it was. It's brand new or it looks different. Thank you.
Please take us, save us, Chris. Ex officio people.
Mine is not about technology. Last week I was at Railvolution, which is a national conference focusing on development, primarily along rail, but they now admit that BRT exists. Was a 4-day program in San Francisco at the Hyatt Regency, very, very good program. I think, Tom, Bob, you were there, and there were some other folks there. It was a good program. And at the date of our next meeting, AC Transit is hosting the California Transit Association at their annual meeting at the Hyatt in Oakland, or the Marriott, the downtown Marriott in Oakland. You're all welcome to come by.
Thank you. Okay, executive staff comments.
Commissioners, I have an answer to Vision Zero. So Vision Zero is almost an international effort in order to focus on reducing fatalities in our transportation system, whether it's by rail, pedestrian, bicycles, cars. And so we've adopted and actually signed an agreement. I attended the ITS World Congress last week, and we signed an agreement with the country of Australia. And they're intrigued by our efforts in trying to help develop the autonomous vehicle, connected vehicle technologies at the weapons station. And if you look at over the years that we've worked on various strategies to straighten our roadways, to install safety belts, to put signal lights up, I asked Matt Kelly, how many accidents, fatalities do we have last year in Contra Costa County, for example? So last year we had 11 fatalities on the state highways in Contra Costa County, which included 1 pedestrian. And on the local streets, we had 74 fatalities that included 18 pedestrians and 2 bicyclists. So we're no near trying to reduce that number of fatalities to 0. And so our thesis, at least my thesis, is this: the only way to reduce the fatalities is to take the decision-making out of the hands of the driver. And that's a harsh statement, but over 90% of the causes of accident is driver error. And so if you want to get that to 0, you're going to have to use technology, and I think it's the vehicle in order to make that happen. Our pedestrians are hit because people are looking for parking spaces, or they're not paying attention, or the pedestrian goes out in an ill-advised fashion and gets struck by a vehicle. So it's either injury or it's a fatality. So what we're trying to do is we sign an agreement also at the ITS World Congress with a number of other countries there, and it seems weird that the Contra Costa Transportation Authority would sign an agreement, but it's with the ITS New Zealand, ITS Australia, China, ITS Industry Alliance, ITS Finland, ITS Germany, ITS Korea, ITS Norway, ITS Singapore, South African Bureau of Safety Standards, ITS Sweden, ITS Taiwan, and ITS UK. So I called ITS America and said, why aren't you guys? And because they asked us to sign, and it seems weird that one little authority out of 1,000 in our country signs an agreement with all these other countries, but we did. And so
Do I get to sign that one?
Sorry, we already signed it, but we can get you one. We can get you a signature. I didn't sign it. Actually, Jack Hall signed it. But so we're going down the path of not only trying to change the way we approach transportation, but also to make it safer. And that's really what the message is. How do we reduce those fatalities? Our last year, 2015, it was the highest increase in 50 years percentage-wise in the United States for traffic fatalities. The highest increase in 50 years. So when I worked for Caltrans, which seems like eons ago, Secretary Mineta, he used to be the mayor of San Jose, you might know him, he was the Secretary of Transportation. He said, my top priority is safety, and we're going to reduce the fatality rate. And there was 42,000 people killed each year on our roadways in those days, 2005, 2006. That's more than were killed in the Vietnam War over a decade in 2 years. Less than 2 years, you kill more people. It's the most prevalent cause of death between the ages of 2 and 24. So it's an epidemic. So we need to fix that. So we signed an agreement. We're trying to focus in on figure out ways of using technologies to bring that number to 0 in Contra Costa County. So that's what Vision Zero is all about. It's really kind of helping us focus in on getting the numbers and then trying to make the right investments to bring that down to 0. Sorry. It's sad. Cloud computing, I just want to say we've gone to the cloud. I know you don't notice anything different, but Randy Carlton's very proud of that, and so is the team. They spent a lot of time. We're in the cloud, so we've actually met one of the requirements of one of our audits. We have redundancy, so we have a server somewhere else, and we have another server in the sky or in the cloud, whatever it's called. And so we're doing very well. We cut the ribbon on the only technology-based project in Proposition 1B, the $19.925 billion bond initiative, the SMART project on Interstate 80. The only other technology-based investment were traffic light synchronization, $150 million for Los Angeles and $100 million for the rest of the state. That's the only technology. And yet, we're trying to get down to zero as far as fatalities are concerned. I see Daryl Weiss in the back. Thank you very much. They're working, asked me to talk a little bit about smart transportation for an article that's going to be published in their Think series. And so we at the Contra Costa Transportation Authority appreciate the ability to focus, or the opportunity to focus on what we're doing here on a national stage. Port Performance Freight Statistic Working Group. I'm the chair of that committee. Just to tell you that I've never made one meeting, and there's only one more, and the next, thank you. The next one's Friday. So I'm not going to be the chair anymore because I told them I don't have enough time. And I went to Japan. I was asked to set up a high-speed rail tour with Central or East Japan Railway Corporation or company, and I've met with Central JR Japan Railway Company. Good to know the Japanese company, Chinese company, Italian company, and a Spanish company are very, very interested in operating what will be the high-speed rail system in California. And when we went to Japan, the JR East people know more about the system than we do. One of the comments that they said, and we've said this all along, we're trying to get the right procurement, is you should bring the operator on board before you build a facility so they can help you design the stations so they're more efficient and make all the right investments rather than build these huge inefficient systems. Build something that fits their needs because they got years and years and years of experience. They built the Shinkansen in 1964. The scheduled deviation is about less than 30 seconds per train on a yearly basis, and they haven't had a fatality on that system since 1964. So it's a very good system. They talked about making the connection to Contra Costa County. They actually mentioned that in the meeting between the ACE and the San Joaquin connection. So they were very interested. They mentioned how they could help do that for our residents. So it was good from that perspective. Yeah, it was very, very interesting. Very interesting meeting. Went to Kawasaki Heavy Industries. I told them to bring a plant to Contra Costa. There's opportunity to create jobs along the western waterfront. It's got water access, build the cars, because they have to meet by America, build the cars in Pittsburgh or along that northern waterfront or in Richmond and take advantage of our workers. Lindsay was invited, and this really is like if you're a speaker, there's a couple places in the United States you want to speak. One is the Commonwealth Club in San Francisco. And is Lindsay here?
Yes, she is.
Oh, there she is. Yeah, so she was actually a featured speaker at the Commonwealth Club. So that's a pretty big deal. I was very jealous.
They know the brains. They figured it out.
We had to, they figured out who the real speaker is. So she did that. It's pretty good. She got raving reviews. It's actually it's on a podcast, so take a listen. Moving I-684, we had a meeting with Caltrans. Ross, Hisham, and I met with staff from Caltrans. We talked about our 7-pronged approach on dealing with the congestion along Interstate 680 to get their buy-in in advance, rather than to have them be all upset with us because we went out and developed a program without them. And so I thought it was a very good meeting with them, and it was well received. I was asked to give a speech at the Diablo International Resource Center. I had to leave the planning committee meeting early. There was probably 30 people in this group. They all pay $15 to learn about a topic. They want to know the history and the issues associated with transportation. So it was a 2-hour session. It's probably the longest speech I've ever given, but they asked a lot of good questions about our transportation system and the history about the transportation system. And the last thing, we've done a lot of speeches. All of us are out giving talks all over, and I was interviewed by State Scoop. They're a tech editor, and they developed kind of an article on what we're doing at the authority. So that's my report. Any questions?
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
I have one.
Yes, sir.
PC was, I don't know, a week, 2 ago, whatever it was. The Monday before the PC, so whatever date that is, I'm driving up Bollinger Canyon Road, and this relates to this Vision Zero. And for whatever reason, when we designed this road, your lights are straight ahead across to the downhill side, and then there's that lovely golf course overpass. And I'm probably the only person that ever goes up that road at regular speed. And I don't know why, but out of 6 lanes, the deer picked mine to be in. And I'm dead serious about that. The question is, because I was the dummy that I didn't buy a connected vehicle on the one that, is this a situation where this car would have seen this and stopped?
It depends on the speed. So you have friction between the tires and the time the sensors pick up a moving object and the amount of time that this traction will bring it to a stop.
Because it didn't hit my bag. The bags didn't deploy. But I'm reminded of. Did you hit the deer? Oh yeah. There's no way you can get out of the way. The point is that the bags didn't deploy, and it's the bags that are potentially very dangerous also if they do. Yeah. Oh, he's fine. He's gone. I don't even want to look at the cost. But the point is that, I mean, if this is one of the, we're talking about zero injuries, but there are other things that pertain to this connected vehicle I hadn't even thought about until it's facing you 5 feet away before you hit it.
Yeah, generally what happens is if you hit a deer, you slam on your brakes, somebody's going to hit you from the rear.
Yeah.
And that's the accident that they're really trying to avoid.
Yes. Okay. Enough. I just came to mind. I said it. Look at.
How about a deer crossing?
Why didn't he take the cart path? Go ahead. I knew I shouldn't have done this.
Well, for information's sake, so everybody understands, if David had been in a automated vehicle, and the car behind him and the car behind that had also been an automated vehicle, and he slams on the brakes hard enough that he's trying to stop, I mean, hopefully the car is going to do it, but wouldn't the car at the same time tell the cars behind? Or do they not talk to each other that way?
So if you have the next generation of car with a connected vehicle technology, that's the whole idea behind platooning of trucks. Cars are no different. So what they do is they send out their position, their speed, the direction, and then onboard information. They pulse that out at 2,000 messages per second, and the car's got to analyze all that information. So once you hit that brake, there's very little brake lag between you and the car behind you. So whereas a human, it's about 1.4 seconds
Right.
before they see the brake lights hit their brakes, they're going 60. You can do the math. This car behind him already senses that it's putting on the brakes.
So
The
they're
car in
all
front,
stopping at
they're
the
all
same
stopping.
time.
Yeah, absolutely. That's why they can put two.
That's why we want it.
Yeah,
Now,
exactly.
this is not a minor road that, I mean, I'm probably the only person that drives the speed limit, and we hear about it all the time. Okay, the October, November, December information only, I would just say on the meeting schedule that you have nothing under the TEP. I don't see any reason why we would, but that's clearly at the call of the chair. Calendars of coming events, you can see for yourself. If there's anything there, no comments. We are adjourned to Wednesday, November 16th at 6 p.m.